Shiur is dedicated to Nishmas Rachalea Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi. We've been discussing the halachos of Muktza. In the last year we discussed Muktza Machmas Gufo, and today we want to move on to another category of Muktza. Again, what we've been discussing is, first we discussed the Yisurim of Tiltul Kalim, Kli Shemalach Isser, Kli Shemalach Heter, Muktza categories that are defined by the existence of a Kli. And then we said, again, Kli Shemalach Isser is a Kli whose predominant use is a prohibited use. Kli Shemalach Heter is a very narrow category of Muktza where you have a Kli whose predominant use is Leheter. And then we moved into a transitionary Muktza, Muktza Machmas Gufo, which is a Kli, but it's a Kli that is so specialized in terms of its use. It's a precision instrument, and it only really has one use, lahalacha on Shabbos. It only has that one use, which is an asur use, and you won't use it for any other purpose other than its designed use. So that's what we typically classify as a Muktza Machmas Gufo, and this is a certain sense a hybrid Muktza, because on the one hand it's part of the Isser of Tiltul Kalim, it's part of the general halacha that you can't transport a Kli, and it is a Kli. But unlike the classic case of Kli Shemalach Isser, there is no heter of L'tzarech Gufo L'tzarech Makomo when it comes to Muktza Machmas Gufo, and therefore it's a much more chomer Muktza. That's the Mishnah Masechet Shabbos Daf Kuf Chav Gimel that tells us Kol HaKelim Nitalim B'Shabbos Chutz Mimeser HaGadol V'Yisei Shel Macharesha. Is any Kli is allowed to be moved on Shabbos, has heterim to be moved, except for these kinds of Muktza Machmas Gufo, which are absolutely Muktza. Then you have a whole separate category of Muktza we have discussed as Muktza Machmas Gufo. Muktza Machmas Gufo is a type of Muktza where you're not talking about a Kli whatsoever. It is not a Kli, and therefore has an inherent status of Muktza. In order for an object to not be Muktza, it has to be Min HaMuchan. It has to be prepared for use on Shabbos. A regular Kli, a Kli Shemalach Heter, is inherently prepared for use. A Kli Shemalach Isser, it's a Kli, so it inherently has a certain use, and perhaps has a certain permissible use. When it comes to something Muktza Machmas Gufo, so since its primary use is asur on Shabbos, so it's not really set aside for use on Shabbos. It's really set aside for non-use on Shabbos. It's not min hamuchan, and therefore it's inherently Muktza. Similarly, if you have an object that is not a Kli, and that really has no real purpose on Shabbos, has no inherent functionality, so that's what we will generally describe as Muktza Machmas Gufo. It's not considered to be min hamuchan, and it is inherently Muktza. You're not allowed to move it on Shabbos, and once again, no heter, L'tzarech Gufo, L'tzarech Makomo, no heter whatsoever. And the classic case, the classic example of Muktza Machmas Gufo is what we call eitz va'even, is sticks and stones. You have things outside, sticks, stones outside. These are inherently Muktza. They have no function, no purpose. They're not set aside for use, and therefore that would be asur to use on Shabbos. That would be us. The classic case is eitz va'even. So in general, just a side point that's important just to get in up front is when it comes to avanim. So regular rocks that are outside, you're not allowed to pick up on Shabbos. They are inherently Muktza. They're not min hamuchan. We'll see a little bit later this afternoon that a person can take something like an eitz even, something that's inherently Muktza, and set it aside for use on Shabbos. And we'll see how that works a little bit later. But inherently, if you haven't set it aside for use, it's inherently Muktza. So what does that mean? You can't handle it. You can't handle it on Shabbos. But, for example, the Mishnah Berurah cites the Mogen Avram and Simin Shin Ches Sifkat and Pei Beis, asur l'taltalam, you're not allowed to handle them on Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Hainu Tiltul Mamish. He's talking about stones here. Even Tiltul Mamish is also V'leishev aleim, that to sit on stones, if they're not going to move, you just sit on them, you're being supported by them, but you're not consuming them in any fashion, you're not moving them in any fashion, so that's permissible. And even perhaps there's a certain wobbliness, and you'll sit on it and it'll cause some shifting of this big rock, so the Mogen Avram says that's okay also. That's called tiltul min hatzad, and that's okay kol zman she'ein mazizon mimkomon, as long as you do not move them with your hands in a normal fashion. This is called tiltul begufo. Tiltul begufo in general is mutter. So when you sit on something or you move something with your body that's not your hands, that in general will be permissible. Here we're talking, when we discuss this kind of muksa, we are talking about things that are inherently muksa. So what are examples of things that are not kelim, and therefore have the status of muksa? So a good example is money. When it comes to money, even though you'll tell me money has a lot of uses, we have a lot of uses for money, yes, but money is not called a kli. This is what the Prima Gadim writes in the Mishpat Sahav, in the beginning of Shin Ches, is that money is not called a kli. Yes, we use it, we transact business with it, but when we speak about a kli in the halacha, we speak about something that has inherent functionality. A pen has inherent functionality. A cup has inherent functionality. A book has inherent functionality. You use the object as something you do with the object. When it comes to money, so there's a green piece of paper with a man's picture on it, so it doesn't have any inherent functionality. We as a society, as a convention, ascribe a certain value to that piece of paper. But it's not that the paper